Good evening, parents, and a very, very warm welcome to what is our penultimate event for our transition into early years. Tonight's focus is all about pastoral support and how we achieve a really strong pastoral approach across both the boys and the girls prep. I'm joined this evening by Mrs. Chong, head of the boys prep, and also Mrs. Coleman, our head of admissions, who will be acting as moderator for this evening. So please do add any comments or questions in the chat as we go. And if there's a pertinent point to pause and answer them in the middle, we absolutely will do that. Otherwise, we will, of course, have the opportunity to answer them at the end. So let me just talk you through the plan for this evening. We are going to talk to you in more detail about how children are supported pastorally across our two prep schools. We're really focusing on that preparation for transition. Some of the areas we will have discussed through our Stepping Stones to Reception event and also with Elaine Halligan, our parenting expert, but some of the content will also be new for you. I know that many of you attended Mrs. Chong's event a couple of weeks ago where we looked at teaching and learning. This is very much the other side of that approach, looking at that well-being and how we are best looking after our children. We firmly believe at Surbiton High that you will not achieve academic success unless children feel safe, happy and indeed secure. And that's why we put so much time and focus into our early years and indeed our whole school approach to well-being and mental health. Now, I've called the next slide Seeking the Positives, which might seem a little bit odd at this time. Obviously, when we first wrote these, we very much hoped that the roadmap would be lifting on the 21st of June. And of course, that hasn't happened. And it might be feeling a little bit like you're just on this relentless treadmill of COVID and Corona and all the difficult challenges we faced. But our approach here has been very much to focus on the positives, believe it or not, that the pandemic has thrown up for us, particularly for our little ones. It's been truly fascinating as educators to just sit back and see how our children have navigated such an unprecedented time. When I thought about your children, they've spent over a quarter of their lives living this. This is now normal for them, whether we like it or not, whether we're comfortable with it or not. What that means in real time is actually they've spent more time at home with you in their formative years than they otherwise would have. Even if it's just when nurseries were closed in the first or second closure, they've spent that really quality time with you. When we look at our reception in year one children and they came back to school, they talked so positively about the time that they spent with their parents, reading, cooking, learning. They loved it, even if it wasn't quite so pleasurable to do the home learning experience as parents at all times. However, it has been really, really important and really mirrors that important approach to early years that we have in other countries where children don't start school until later on. We've also had the chance to see a greater flexibility and adaptability in our children. We spent a great deal of time planning ahead, thinking about how we would navigate these choppy waters for the children. And yet in the vast majority of cases, they have absolutely swum through the experience. They have just altered their perceptions, altered their expectations and just got on with it, which has been truly amazing to see. They have been absolutely resilient, and I have no doubt that your children coming in will be exactly the same. We also have the added benefit of the fact that as a school and as a learning organisation, we have now lived through this time for a year and a half. So compared to the parents that were coming in this time last year, where it was all still a bit of a new experience doing teaching and learning online, we are now very adept at teaching lessons online, giving pastoral support online. Now, my hope is very much that you never have to experience that online provision, but rest assured, if you ever did, we are absolutely ready and prepared for it. We've been able to really reflect on what this time has brought us, both in terms of positives and negatives, and thought about how we as a school can navigate that. So whatever September has to throw at us, or indeed January next year, we are completely ready to put your child front and centre of our approach. So as I said, our pastoral support is a really, really strong facet of what we do. Our motto across both schools is "May love always lead us." And I've asked a question there, what does this actually look like? It sounds like a platitude, it sounds like something that's, you know, nice to have, but what does that mean? What it means for us is that our boys and girls learn to be truly empathetic, to really understand the impact that their actions and their behaviours have on others. They don't see themselves as individual little islands within a community, but an absolutely central part of a bigger group. They learn how to build and foster powerful relationships with their friends, with their teachers, and indeed with their families. We teach them what it means to be a good person. We teach them how important it is to have that love of each other and that sense of collaboration. It's certainly something that we really, really missed during lockdown, as I'm sure you all did. And so coming back together as a community has been really powerful. And we really focus on the power of that togetherness and how much we appreciate it now, probably far more than we ever did before. We then also have 3 values that underpin everything we do: to inspire our children, to encourage our children, and to empower our children. And the focus of this evening is really around that encouragement, but also that empowerment. Tracy's session on teaching and learning was very much about how we inspire them through that broad, rigorous and enriching curriculum. Tonight is more about how we encourage them to be the very best that they can be, how we encourage them to take risks and make mistakes, and how we empower them to be truly proud of who they are and what they have to offer. So what does that look like in real terms? We have a huge network of support. I always say that one of the biggest strengths of an education at Surbiton High School is that no child can slip through the net. That first and most important relationship for your little one coming in September is the one that they have with their form tutor. Now, as Mrs. Chong explained in our session previously, that form tutor, particularly in reception, teaches the children the majority of their lessons from the early years framework. However, they also have that pastoral care, knowledge and understanding of your child. They know when your child is having a good day, when they're having a bad day, whether they've eaten all of their lunch, whether they've tried something new for the first time, whether they're a bit tired, whether they're looking wobbly. They are absolutely expert at noticing everything about your little one and then communicating that with you. The form tutor is the person that you as parents will have the most contact with. You have their email address and you are able to contact them at any point if you need to raise a concern or equally share some good news. You might see them at pick up and drop off and have those conversations. You don't always need to wait for a formal meeting as well. We very much operate an open door policy and hope that any concerns or queries you might have are addressed at that stage with the form tutor. Both Mrs. Chong and I are so proud of our team of form tutors and the level of care and love which they invest in that role. They take real pride in it and see each form as a little tribe that they take a great deal of responsibility for, and they genuinely relish the time they spend with those children. It's a really special relationship and you watch it grow over the year, none more than you see in reception. It's really special. Above that, you then also have a head of pre-prep, and again you've got Mrs. Gow at the boys prep and Miss Naylor at the girls prep, both of whom will be joining us for our final Q&A session next week. They have that overall responsibility for the pre-prep children, which of course includes reception. They have that strategy of where we're growing and developing as a school in those formative early years, and they're also able to give you additional time and support as parents if there's something that's particularly concerning you. They again are a very approachable go-to team, both of whom are extremely experienced in early years and are able to share so much of that knowledge with all of us. Another layer is then the deputy head for pupil development. Now at the boys prep, that's Mrs. Sally Johnston, and at the girls prep, Mr. David Williams. And again, we've been very clear in our structure in both leadership teams at our schools, where there is a deputy head responsible for the academic development of the children and an academic and a pastoral deputy head who's responsible for that pupil development. They have absolute equal weighting and equal voice on the leadership team because, as I said at the start, one simply cannot flourish without the other. And so there are so many different levels where we are actively and proactively considering your child's well-being, how they're developing, who they are becoming, and that character side of their education. The final very important section of this net is our buddies. Now, we've talked at length about buddies. You will have heard about them at any open event you have attended, and I know that we've mentioned them in previous meetings, but the buddies are absolutely fundamental to settling your little one in and watching them grow over the year. For those of you who don't know, buddies are currently in year 5 at the boys and girls prep. They have been allocated one of your children and they have been furiously drafting and redrafting their buddy letters because they want them to be absolutely perfect when they hit your doorsteps. They are so excited to be taking your little one in and genuinely see them as a little brother or indeed a little sister. And again, it's a relationship they are so excited by, and they have been waiting a long time to be at the top of the school to take on that role of responsibility. With very little warning, I actually got some of my year 6 girls together to talk a little bit about the buddy system. I would love for them to be here live with us, but I felt that was a bit of a stretch at 7:30 on a Thursday night. So instead, we interviewed them and we've put together a short clip of some of their reflections on what it is like to be a buddy.
Every year the Year 6s get to experience leadership through the buddy system. Despite the setbacks, this year has still been packed with many fun events.
Usually we would be able to play with them and read them stories in the library. We are still managing to give them presents for their birthdays and Christmas, just in a COVID-safe way, and see them, but not as many times as we would have liked.
We have worked very hard to see our buddies at every possible opportunity, and we thank our teachers for arranging these treasured meetups.
Over this year, we have developed a sister-like love for our buddies, even through coronavirus restrictions.
Unfortunately, we have not been able to see them during home learning. However, we have managed to communicate with videos and letters.
It has been a pleasure seeing them flourish and grow into the wonderful girls that they are.
So it's really nice to be able to communicate with younger pupils and make them feel at home at Septon High.
It makes you feel more like a role model, and them looking up to you.
It's really nice to look back at yourself when you were in reception and then think about who you are now in year 6 and helping younger people.
It's really nice to understand what they get up to and what we get up to.
When I was in reception, it was very nice to be able to play with my buddies.
Very nice.
It was fantastic to be able to play.
It was great fun. It was
great fun to be able to play with my buddies at break time and lunchtime. We would had a lot of fun. Have I already said fun?
Yeah.
We would enjoy ourselves thoroughly, and I would love playing with them.
I feel that having a buddy system has helped us all become better role models and experience leadership for those who haven't so much this year.
Nice.
It made me more sociable, like to talk with others and like other year groups.
Yeah, usually you wouldn't get the chance to talk with like receptions if you're in year 5, 4, but in year 6, you're set with a buddy, and it's really fun to just like show them the way around the school.
And we start our journey in year 5 by writing letters to our buddies and trying to understand who they are.
I remember the whole class was really excited when we found out who our buddies were, especially Olivia Osborne.
Yeah.
I think all of us have all looked up to having a buddy, and then to finally get a buddy has been a really good experience, and we've all really enjoyed it.
It's been amazing to watch them grow and settle into life here at Surbiton.
It's amazing just to think that we were once those tiny receptions like following us around the playground, and now we're year 6s and we are the top buddy.
The big buddy.
Yeah, the big sister.
And it's also nice to share a buddy because you and the person you're sharing a buddy with can communicate with each other about what you're going to talk to your buddy about and share the enjoyment with each other.
It's a great opportunity to get to know them and their lifestyle and maybe their siblings, and you really get to understand them through the year.
My buddy at the start, she would not talk to me. She would wave at me, yeah, but there was absolutely no talking involved. But now that we're further and we've got about 4 weeks left of school, she started talking to me a bit more, which is nice to see.
We're all really excited when we get to see our buddies when we meet up in the playground, because we remember the start when they wouldn't talk to us, and then now the big chatterboxes. And then sometimes some people it might lead up to them seeing their buddy in the park.
Soon we're doing the teddy bears picnic with our buddies, where we'll get to watch them play with them and talk to them, and it will be a great experience.
I'm really looking forward to seeing my buddy more, mainly at the teddy bear picnic, because it's been a great experience this term, and seeing as it's nearly the end of the year, I want to make the most of it.
In wet break, a few year 6s are nominated to go down and help reception with wet break. And we also do lots of other events. So I can remember from when I was in reception, we would have not like a disco, but it's kind of like a party where we would play and do events with our buddies, like Smash Chocolate, Pass the Parcel.
Those sort of like fun kids.
Yeah.
I think all in all the buddy system has really helped us, and is something that is special to Surbiton, because I've never heard of a school that does anything as exciting and cool as being able to have a buddy in a lower year.
But some of the highlights that they were giving were things like being able to take responsibility, being able to teach the children certain games and activities on the playground, being able to show them the ropes. And they took a very mature approach to thinking that it was their opportunity to really role model Surbiton High expectations to these little people. And one of the loveliest things they were saying was how much joy they take in watching them flourish over the year. And they sort of arrive as these quiet little receptions who aren't quite ready to say hello, but will wave. And by the end of the year, they can't stop them talking. So do watch that video when it comes out, because it's really special and really very sweet. What you can see in front of you now are how we sort of pull together some of those other key characteristics that we look for in our children. So you can see we've got the theme of the tree in both schools, and at the Boys Prep we look for our 3 R's, which stand for respect, responsibility and resilience. And what we really do here is look for the boys to show those values. We teach them how to show those values as well, and then we celebrate them every single time they show them, because those for us are far more important than whether they get 10 out of 10 in every spelling test. It's about who they are as learners and how willing they are to dig in and keep trying when they find things difficult, but also how much respect they show to one another, to themselves, and indeed the team around them. At the Girls Prep we talk about our price tree, and that stands for children who are polite, resilient, independent, caring, and indeed show effort in their work. And I think both of those systems really reflect the importance we place on the process of learning and the kind of characteristics that we develop around learning in terms of really developing in those independent skills and throwing yourself into your learning journey with aplomb. We celebrate the children for those throughout the year. It's not something that your child will get once and then is rotated through the form. Every time they show those values, they're celebrated, right from reception to year 6. And both Mrs. Chong and I celebrate those children very publicly in a Friday celebration assembly. And we actually explain why they've been identified. So not just that they've been resilient, but they were really resilient when counting up to 10 in French, or really responsible when they took responsibility for their friends who were a friend who had tripped over in the playground, or they've been really respectful of the environment by helping to keep it tidy. So they really truly understand what we're looking for and how they can show those values as well. The other part of how we make sure your children are pastorally supported is through our links with home, and it's something that we're really, really passionate about here at Surbiton High, and something that we genuinely have missed over the last year and a half. We work in real partnership with our parents, and I hope that the last few events that you've been able to attend, albeit online, have reflected that investment that we place in that homeschool relationship. We know that we can deliver a fantastic education here at Surbiton High School, and we know that you as parents at home deliver brilliant support. However, we think we can be even more than brilliant if we work together. We think that we can produce a genuinely untouchable education for your child if we work in genuine partnership with you. And we think that the key to that is information sharing and communication. So right from the off in September, you will be invited to a curriculum evening where you hear from the early years team about what it is your children are going to be learning this year and how they are going to be learning it. That's also followed up with an early years booklet that pulls together all of that curriculum information, how we assess the children, what we're teaching them, and so on. There are then 3 other formal points in the year where you come in and meet with the staff, and those are our parents' evenings, which happen once a term. And again, you come in and you have a really good holistic overview of how your child's been developing in that term. Whichever half of the term you come to a parents' evening in, the opposite half of the term you are given a written report for your child. And what we do is probably slightly different here at Surbiton, is we do that 3 times over the year, but on a cumulative report. So you always know exactly what your child's going to be studying that year and the progress they're currently making against those objectives, with also a very clear target for development in each area. But at any given point beyond those 6 formal points, you can come in at any point and have those conversations. We are also just as likely to pick up the phone to you to say that they've made great progress in this area, or they showed some really beautiful behaviour towards another friend, or if we've got any concerns. You don't need to worry that if you haven't heard from us that we're not talking to you, it means you have nothing to worry about. I promise you now that you will not get to July to find out your child has had a difficult year or had a challenge. We get in touch very early at any given point so that we can work in partnership to make things work. We also host over the year a series of workshops that have an academic focus, but also have a pastoral focus at an age-related level. So sometimes that might be a whole school approach. Other times it will be very focused to reception or very focused to Key Stage 1, where we talk to you about how we are growing and developing your children and how you can support that at home. We make a great deal of one-to-one calls, and that goes both ways. You know, we're never afraid to pick up the phone and have a conversation with you, or even better, invite you in. But equally, never ever wait to pick up the phone and talk to us. Never sit on a niggle or a worry. Just come and share it with us, because we genuinely can help. And a problem shared is a problem halved, and we really are working on this together. The final one there is our Meet the Head meetings. And again, this is a great opportunity. Every half a term, so 6 times over the year, the reps in each year group gather feedback from you as parents, and any questions, anything you want to celebrate, that you then share directly with myself and with Mrs. Chong. So we get comments from reception to year 6. This is working really well. We're loving this. Is there any chance we could have this? And again, it's a really good opportunity for us to take feedback from you, share with you our thoughts and how we're growing and developing the school, and work again in genuine partnership with you. What's incredible about that is if comments being made by more than 2 or 3 parents, then we discuss it in an open forum. But if it's a personalised specific comment just to you and your child, you still get a personalised response explaining the answer to your question. We very much operate on the law of no such thing as a silly question here. If you need to ask it, it means we haven't explained it or made it clear. So just ask. Equally, there's never an issue that's too small to share. If it matters to you or it matters to your little one, then it genuinely matters to us. And we would far rather hear about it and know, so that we can help and support you, rather than wait for it to become a bigger issue. I talked earlier about how we empower and encourage our children, and part of that is really around mindset. Now, some of you may be aware already of the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, who looks at mindset and compares a growth mindset to a fixed mindset. In its most general terms, a fixed mindset is somebody who thinks that things are absolutely set in stone. Your intelligence is set in stone. Mistakes are bad. You want to be the best. It's quite competitive, and it's a difficult place to be. It's a place where a coaster might sit who thinks, I'm doing just enough, I'm getting by, I'm therefore not going to stretch and challenge myself, because in so doing I might run the risk of failing or not being good enough. And that's something that we've worked really, really hard across both prep schools to get rid of. So much so that actually the word perfect is banned at the girls' prep. No one is allowed to use it, because we are never, ever chasing perfection. We're always chasing the opportunity to be a little bit better tomorrow. And equally, sometimes we love just celebrating how well we've done today. Instead, we really focus on developing that growth mindset. It's really interesting. When you walk around a school and look for children showing a growth mindset, I personally think you're most likely to find those children in reception. They absolutely love mistake making. They're curious. They ask the biggest questions, as I'm sure you already know, as you answer thousands of them on the way to nursery every morning. They might try, I'm just thinking of an example when we were doing Mr. Wolf's pancakes at the girls' prep, and they had to build baskets to carry all of Mr. Wolf's ingredients in, and their baskets kept breaking. They weren't built strong enough, the paper wasn't tough enough, and rather than cry or get upset or feel they failed, they just kept going back to the workshop and adding more tape and using different materials. They are genuinely tenacious and resilient, and that growth mindset is abundant in the early years. It's our job as teachers to make sure that remains as they move through, and so we really, really focus on how we can develop that growth mindset at an age appropriate level. So some really useful pointers there on this slide here of, you know, some of these phrases you may have heard your child use. I hope not, but you know, we're realistic. I'm sure you have at some point where they've given up, or something they've done is not good enough, or it's too hard. And again, you start to see towards the end of reception, more year 1, them looking around and seeing that there are things their friends can do that they can't quite do yet. And what we try and do is get them to shift that mindset. So rather than I give up, we get them to think about a different strategy they might be able to use. If they find it too hard, we get them to encourage to think it's just going to take a bit longer than you were expecting. And we really give them the tools to become increasingly comfortable with that mindset. It doesn't just happen overnight, but as I said, reception children are innately able in this area, and we just need to keep building on that with them. But it's really important that you as parents understand that that is our approach, and therefore you can really back that up at home. So if they're coming home with their first few reading books and they're struggling and it's all a bit difficult, you're able to say, look, it's just going to take a bit longer, it's fine. And you can echo some of that language that we're using at school. You will find eventually they start to parrot it back at you, which can be quite frustrating. When you're finding something difficult, they say, come on, don't give up. I actually attend a year 3 reading club at the moment, and I finished the task I've been set by Isabel. handed it in and said, Miss Stewart, put your best foot forward, you need to go back and edit that. And so they do get very, very used to having that feedback and looking at growing and developing. In all seriousness, we do role model that as staff in our language, in our assemblies, and also how we admit our own mistakes and the silly things that we get up to, so that the children can become really genuinely able and comfortable with that. If you ever want to look it up, it's Carol Dweck's work, but there's a huge amount that you can access with that. So obviously we are rattling towards the point where your little one is going to be transitioning into our schools, and we are so excited. Thought it'd be helpful to just update for you a couple of things that we've been doing our end to make sure those transitions are successful. So there's been a great deal of sharing of information going on. We have been sending our brilliant early years team out into southwest London and Surrey to your nursery schools. The vast majority of nurseries were happy for us to come in, and we have been in to meet with your children's key workers, and in some cases with your children, which has been fantastic. For those nurseries who have been unable to do that for COVID reasons, we've been able to talk to them online to get a really good conversation going. And what that means is that when your little one joins us in September, we already know quite a lot about what they're good at, what they might be struggling with, what will make a really successful transition for them. So that's been a really powerful piece of information sharing for us. We're also going to be hosting our story sessions with our class teachers and teaching assistants. Now, ideally, we would have had them in the classroom, but because of the roadmap being delayed, we're going to have to do it outside in a socially distanced way, but we are still very committed to making sure your children can come, I was about to say into school, come outside school for a story session with our staff, and you as parents of course will be invited to that as well. Although we are asking, I'm afraid, that only one parent comes rather than two, so that we can keep you as separate as we're able to. Buddy letters are imminent. I know I've been saying that for a while, but they really are imminent. And again, that will be a really special thing for your little one to receive. We've also been really pleased that we're able to invite reception in for our move up mornings, so that they will be able to come in their entirety in their class and have that sort of first taster session, which is really exciting. Sadly, we've not been able to do that for all year groups, but we recognise the importance of reception, being able to come in and do that. That will hopefully give them those opportunities to explore the learning spaces, ask any questions, and just get used to thinking of this as their big school, whether that's the boys' prep or indeed the girls' prep. Obviously, we've also got the transition talks for parents that you are currently at and that we've been hosting, all of which have been recorded, all of which you can access again if you need to. And of course, we'll have our final one, I think it's next week, where you can come with any question you have. Very much following the rule I stated at the start, which is that there is no such thing as a stupid question. Now, one of the parents at the teaching and learning evening with Mrs. Chong requested some book recommendations for those children who might be feeling a bit anxious about starting school. Now, Mrs. Chong's sage advice was that often it's not so much the children who are anxious, but sometimes picking up on some of the anxieties that we all have as adults. So we want to make sure those conversations are completely positive and exciting. And as Mrs. Chong said, just business as usual. This is not a big deal. We're just starting school. We're ready. However, she has very kindly pulled together some book recommendations, which are obviously on this slide. I won't read them out to you, but they're there for you with some links as well. And also that Topsy and Tim clip that she also mentioned. So that's all there for you. But equally, if you've read a particularly good one that you'd be willing to share with all of us, then please do put that in the chat so that we can all learn from each other. So I also thought it'd be helpful for you to know a little bit about what those first few days are going to look like. Now, we've actually changed the term dates for September to give us an extra day so that reception can come in on their own for and I use inverted commas here, a normal school day, which it won't be, of course, because the rest of the children won't be here, but so they've got the school to themselves. They can go exploring with the teachers and really familiarise themselves with the environment. It is bigger, it's noisier than what they're used to, and so it's a good chance for them to have the school to themselves to do that. We also spend the first few days just settling them into routines, even just coming in the morning, hanging up their bits and bobs, putting away their water bottle and their snack box and sitting down for registration. Takes practice, as does lining up at the door, as does going to lunch. All of those things that we absolutely take for granted as we move through the school are so new and so exciting for reception, and we spend a great deal of time helping them to learn how to do that. We also set the classrooms up to replicate a nursery setting with similar activities each day that they can become familiar with, just so they settle into the bits that are less different for them. We teach them how to make friends and make new friends. Some of them are coming from the same nurseries, but others are all coming to new schools together. And so it's a really good opportunity for them to make new friends, and we teach them how to do that. We build in buddy time, so they will spend time with their Year 6 buddies on those first few days, COVID allowing, which I'm very much hoping it will. And we just let them explore. We also let them have fun. We really want those first few days of school to be fun, memorable, exciting. We're realistic. By the end of the first week, they are absolutely shattered, and you need to be prepared for that too. They will come home at sort of 3:15, absolutely shattered. So don't expect them to be good for anything after school for those first few weeks. They will also probably tell you very little about what they did. They'll probably say they did nothing. At best, they lined up and had lunch. I can assure you they will have been doing significantly more than that. And the reception team will keep you up to date about what that looks like. But I just thought it might be helpful for you to have a flavour of what those first few days might look like. This has been our mantra for the last year and a half, with our current parents, with our prospective parents, with our staff, and indeed our children. There are things that matter, there are things that we can control. There's also a great deal of stuff that doesn't really matter and that you can't control. And so we've really focused throughout this on what matters and what we can control. And for us, the thing that matters more than anything else is your children, making sure that they feel ready, settled and secure. And we can control that through all of the things we've put in place for you there. All the other stuff will happen. It will just happen because we have no control over it, but we have every single scenario ready. Whatever comes our way, we're ready for it now. And I think that's a really powerful thing to be able to say, and something that I'm immensely grateful to be able to say, having had such a learning curve over the last year and a half. But please be assured that we are completely focused on your children, and indeed you, and the things that we can control to make sure you all feel utterly reassured and positive and ready for the exciting times that lie ahead of you. So, do you know, I impressed myself. I set myself half an hour to do that, and that was 28 minutes, which probably means I spoke too quickly, but we've covered everything. And now it is over to you. So Mrs. Coleman has been sat very patiently on the call moderating. So please do ask us any questions. I've also got Mr. Williams, who is my Deputy Head Pastoral, available to answer questions too. And of course, we have Mrs. Chong, who is poised and ready for any questions. So Mrs. Coleman, without further ado, I'm coming to you.
Hi there, Stuart. First question, you talk a lot about flourishing. How do you ensure my child will flourish with you? Great question there.
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say by knowing your child really, really well. We will get to know them. We will get to know what makes them tick, what makes them wobble, where they feel most confident, and we will draw out in them the very best that they have to give, whatever that might look like. And we will actively seek opportunities for them to grow and shine and flourish and feel celebrated, whatever guise that might take, so that they feel they have a place in our school, they have a place in our community, and they bring something really, really valuable to the table.
Amazing, thank you. Are the storytime sessions held with the reception teacher that they will have?
It completely depends on which day you're signing up to, whether that member of staff is in, or they might be out on a nursery visit. And of course, at the Girls Prep, we have a new member of staff joining us, who is currently in Leeds. So if it's her session, she might be able to join virtually for part of it, but some of the sessions will be with other teachers within the early years team. What's important to note in early years, far more than any other year group, is the collaboration across the year group, particularly when they're doing what we call continuous provision. So they will actually know all of the staff in early years really well, rather than just their form teacher. So even if it's not their form teacher, it'll be somebody they get to know really, really well and spend a great deal of time with.
Great, thank you very much. And in relation to the exploring visit scheduled, does the parent also attend, or are the children alone?
So when it comes to the move up session, I'm afraid you are going to be handing them over to us. We are not able to have any parents on site beyond one-to-one visits. So the story sessions can be outside, but we feel really strongly that the exploring sessions need to be in school. And therefore you are going to walk them onto the school site. We will then take them from you and you will leave them with us. And they will be absolutely fine.
Brilliant, thank you. Do you offer a staggered start at the beginning of term?
Well, it's staggered in as much as they have the whole school to themselves on the Friday, and that's for a shorter period of time. They're not in for the whole school day, but then from the Monday, we want to get them into the routine of the school day. Obviously, if a specific individual was really struggling, we would look at that with you as parents and just think maybe a shorter day for that child on that day. But largely speaking, we find that they can do the shorter day on the Friday by themselves, and then come Monday, they're ready to get into the school routine.
Brilliant, thank you. The same question, actually, how long are the reception girls in the first day and when do they start full day? So basically that's answered exactly that question, so I shall publish that one. Final question for the moment. Is there a way of finding out if your child has any other children attending from their current nursery?
I'm not sure there is really, because we wouldn't normally share information from one family to another. So no, I think it would just be a case of you chatting amongst your fellow parents of that nursery. What we do try and do is where your children are coming, if there's a block coming from one nursery, we do try and split them up a little bit. So they're not completely on their own, but we do want them to build some friendships with new children as well. So that may well happen in that time anyway.
Fantastic. And just to comment on that, for GDPR purposes, we can't sort of share details, but we do ask you when you join up and sign the new pupil questionnaire whether you'd be happy to have your contact details shared with the other members of your class. And we do eventually share a class contact list with mobile phone numbers and email addresses of people in your class.
That's a really good point to make, and I know that was one of the last questions. There's sort of a last call for any other questions or comments that people haven't yet made. And while you're thinking about that, the other area that we haven't really talked about a huge amount yet is the Parents Association, who are really integral to your well-being and your pastoral care, because they are very good at forging friendships, building a sense of community. All things willing, you'll be invited to a really fun new parents supper the first couple of weeks in September, where you will meet the parents you're going to be spending a great deal of time with over the next 7 years. And they will also collate all of your numbers and set up WhatsApp groups and those sorts of things so that you're able to keep in touch, and sort of organise drinks and all the kind of other bits and pieces that I know our parents greatly enjoy of a Friday evening. So it's not only your little ones who are joining that community, it's also you.
Wonderful, thank you. When will we find out our teachers' names so we can start using it over the summer as part of the transition?
That is a fantastic question. So we are just in the process of finalising our class lists based on the nursery information and the nursery visits. The class lists will be published before your move up a day so that you know which class your child's going into. We're also hoping to send out some other materials that are just familiarisation, photographs and those sorts of things, so that those key people will become very well known in your house. I also noticed when I was coming back from an event this afternoon, a little one in uniform outside the school gates, who I'm pretty sure isn't in reception 2020. So I think one of you has already got your uniform and bought your little one to stand outside the gates to just get used to school, which was really lovely to see. So again, that's another good opportunity to just familiarise yourself with school. So teacher's name and walking past a few times, all of those things will really, really help to normalise what is a really exciting event.
Wonderful. That seems to be the final question.
Amazing. I was just going to say, Mrs. Chong, is there anything that you feel we haven't covered that you think would be useful to talk about or share?
No, I think one of the questions that came up was again about logistics, and I do think you are going to get Mrs. Coleman sending out all that information that you've mentioned will be sent out to you in the next couple of weeks. So that will include the story sessions, and it will include all the dates and times and the day of inset as well, so that you have got a full kind of operational diary, if you like.
The other thing that's worth pointing out on logistics, Mr. Williams has just messaged me to say another really good thing that you can practice as part of this routine and familiarisation is getting in and out of the car. And even better, seat belts, if that's something that your little one's working towards, because if you are going to use the kiss and drop off in either school, it is a rapid situation where you literally pull in and we open up the door and your little one needs to be able to jump out, book bag in hand and come into school. And likewise, at the end of the day, you arrive, we link that it's Olivia's dad arriving or Tom's mum, and we put Tom or Olivia in the car. You need to be able to really quickly pop that seatbelt on and pull out. So any practice you can do with that would be great. If that sounds too fast and too stressful to start with, that's no problem. Park locally and walk in. And if you do that, there's a bit more time to say goodbye and have a lovely chat. And again, you don't need to commit to one or the other. Try out a few over the first few days and see what works best for you as a family. But there's a very, very good bit of advice from Mr. Williams there. Get those seatbelts practiced. And of course, the book bags, don't worry, they're not laden down with heavy dictionaries and books. It is a reading book at best, and a lot of stuff that they've made or drawn or cut up that they will proudly show you at the end of each day. So yeah, do just practice some of those bits, anything that will help to make life easier, and just remove one of those things that might cause stress that you can control. Any other questions, Mrs. Coleman?
There aren't, but just as Mr. Williams has said on his message to everybody, we can't wait to see all of your lovely boys and girls in a couple of weeks' time.
We really can't. I just can't believe we are suddenly getting to that point. It feels like it's been a very, very long wait, and suddenly it's here in weeks, and we are so excited. Do please join us in that final session if you do have any remaining questions, and otherwise we really, really look forward to seeing at least some of you at the story sessions, and dropping off at the Move Up morning, ready for a positive start in September. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.